So I ran across an article the other day that caught my eye called, "I Don't Want My Wife to Become a Stay-at-Home Mom." It's from a parenting advice column in Slate magazine called Care and Feeding. Did I say that? No, Care and Feeding. Dear Care and Feeding, I am a new father to a beautiful 10-month-old girl. My wife's company has a generous maternity leave policy, and she has been at home with our daughter since the birth and is scheduled to go back to work just after her first birthday in January. She recently told me she doesn't want to go back to her job and would like to be a stay-at-home mom instead. I asked her why, and she said she enjoys being a mother too much to leave our daughter to go back to work when she doesn't need to. This is such a departure from our plans before the baby was born. She has a good job that she enjoyed before going on leave and has always been adamant that she wanted to continue working even after becoming a mom. We met when we worked at the same company many years ago, and one of the things I was most attracted to was her ambition and tenacity. It's really surprising to hear that her career isn't that important to her anymore. Honestly, I don't want her to quit her job. She earns about the same as I do, and while we could make ends meet on my income alone, it would impact our ability to save, and we'd need to give up one of our cars and cut way back on extras that make life more enjoyable. I also just don't want a stay-at-home wife. I really admired my wife for her work ethic, and I want her to set a good example for our daughter, too. Seeing her give up like this is really disappointing. It gets better. I gently asked her if she thought her change in attitude could be related to a possible mental health issue. Yeah, he said that. But she didn't take that well. Surprising. She says she only cares about our daughter and that that's where all of her energy needs to go right now, and that if I love her, I will let her do this. I do love my wife, but I'm seeing a whole new side of her that I just don't like or admire. What should I do? What should I do? Where to begin? I wonder if you guys think that that's an unusual response. I'm curious about that. So feel free to make comments below about whether you've run across this. I certainly know enough about this issue that generationally we have done such damage to the traditional family that we have encouraged this attitude, not just on the part of women to reject staying home with their babies, but actually to the point where men have fallen prey to this narrative as well. It's really it's just an example of, it's the epitome of this massive value shift in the last 30 years away from family onto money, success, work, workaholism, just anything other than taking care of one's children, particularly in the early years. This poor woman is having to essentially convince her own husband that it's normal, good, and right for a mother to be with her baby. I mean, that's what this has come to. And I've heard this a lot with young couples where the man has gotten so used to this new world we've created and the double income lifestyle that, and of course men don't, I mean, as a rule, they're not the ones who stay home in the early years. So they really don't understand what goes on during that time. It's really, and of course women don't either, but at least they're more in tune to it when they actually have the baby. So this is just a complete travesty that women have to convince their husbands to, quote unquote, let them stay home or to agree to that. But it speaks volumes about what we've done in this society to the entire family and to children and their needs. But I will say this, one of the things that I see most often in coaching is that people who are not on the same page about work and family and about what they're going to do in advance of getting married have the most trouble down the line. You'd be surprised at how many people don't even discuss it. They really don't. They just assume that the way they're living pre-kid is the same way they're going to live post-kid, and that rarely ever happens. And it's true that a lot of people can't know in advance how they're going to feel, but it's better to err on the side of caution and assume that you will want to take care of your baby, not that you won't. That allows you then to make choices early on that allow you to do that when the time comes, rather than have this huge conflict financially. In this case, it's not the case with what I just read to you, that it's going to be a financial issue, but with a lot of people it is, because, for example, they chose to buy a house based on 2 incomes instead of 1. There's an example of what would force you back into the workforce. But in this case, we're not even talking about money. We're talking about a value difference. And this couple, this is just the beginning of the problems that they're going to have, because if the two of them are not on the same page about what they value, about what's important, then that's going to come through over and over again in the coming years. So this isn't just a matter of just solving this little problem right now. This is a value shift and a value gap. And you just need to be married to somebody who values the same things that you do. And then you do not get into this horrible quandary that this woman is now in. So I don't know if that's an extreme version, that question that this man wrote, or if it's entirely typical, but I know it's certainly more common than it ever was. In my day, that would have never happened. You never would have heard something like this, or basically any day prior to 10 or 15 years ago, a question being posed like this by a husband would have never happened. Women never would have been in the boat of having to convince their husbands to let them stay home. It's just comedy to even think about it. So, I mean, it's not comedy, it's sad, but that's where we are. So I had to share that because I was so when I saw it. So there you go. Comments below for what you have seen in your world on this issue would be great.